One of the people who is pounding the table the hardest for more regulation in crypto is Kevin O'Leary. And one of the things that's really bothering me about Mr. Wonderful is that he's acting as if he lost money on FTX because he lost $15 million. Well, what Kevin O'Leary doesn't like to acknowledge is the fact that the money he lost was the money he was paid by Sam Bankman-Fried to pump FTX.
Peter Schiff has questioned why the U.S. government moved to charge FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried a day before he was due to testify before Congress. What happened? Schiff said on Twitter, "From a tactical perspective, I don't understand why the U.S. government didn't wait until after Bankman-Fried testified under oath before Congress tomorrow before charging him with a crime." Many of the Twitter followers who responded to his comments believe that he was arrested so as to prevent him from testifying. This is what one of them have to say: "Buddy, you are obviously not paying attention. He was arrested to make sure he didn't testify." Another responded, "Exactly. It was strategically coordinated to keep him quiet and make it look like justice was served, a common card to play in the playbook." According to another Twitter respondent, the people in charge didn't want him talking to Congress. He would expose all of them, so they had him arrested. Now he will be abstained. Listen to another interesting response: "Easy. It was to protect all of the corrupt members of Congress who colluded with SBF and took stolen funds as campaign donations for incriminating themselves. Isn't this blatantly obvious even for you?" Peter Schiff, in a recent appearance on NTD Capital Report, talked about the collapse of FTX, saying ultimately it was the Federal Reserve's fault. And it is a warning sign for the broader economy. Some people have expressed sympathy for Bankman-Fried, saying his Navy got him in trouble and that he wasn't intentionally trying to defraud people. Peter said he doesn't know whether Bankman-Fried's actions were criminal or just the result of gross incompetence and negligence. But you would think some of these hedge fund managers who invested with him would have done a little bit of due diligence. But this just shows you the way investors will act when they're drunk on cheap money. So I would blame the Federal Reserve for a lot of people acting as foolishly as they did. Because maybe he was a kid, but there were a lot of grown-ups who were giving him money. Peter Schiff specifically targeted Kevin O'Leary, who he accused of lying about losing money in FTX, because he didn't lose any money due to the fact that he received $15 million from FTX to promote them. Before we listen to Peter Schiff, please don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you are yet to do so. Thanks for watching our videos.
You know, I wish I would have taken a deeper look into Sam Bankman-Fried earlier, because I think I would have ferreted out the fraud pretty quickly, just like I did with Celsius. I just had one debate with Mashinsky, and I immediately knew he was running a Ponzi, and I called him out during the debate. And this operation was similar in that they were paying yield on crypto. How could you do that? Cryptos don't generate yield. The only way to generate yield is to take tremendous risk, which is exactly what he did. Except the people who were depositing their crypto didn't appreciate the risk that was being taken. Of course, they were taking a lot of risk themselves just owning crypto, because all these currencies are basically worthless. They're not even really currencies. They're collectible tokens. But pretty soon, nobody is going to want a Bitcoin collection or any of these collections, and the prices are going to implode. Well, I don't really know to the extent that what he did was criminal or just, gross incompetence and negligence. I don't really have enough information, but he was a young kid. I mean, he just turned 30. But, you would think that some of these hedge fund managers that invested with him would have done a little bit of due diligence. But this just shows you the way investors will act when they're drunk on cheap money. So I would blame the Federal Reserve for a lot of people acting as foolishly as they did, because maybe he was a kid, but there were a lot of grown-ups that were giving him money.
One of the people who is pounding the table the hardest for more regulation in crypto is Kevin O'Leary. And one of the things that's really bothering me about Mr. Wonderful is that he's acting as if he lost money on FTX because he lost $15 million. Well, what Kevin O'Leary doesn't like to acknowledge is the fact that the money he lost was the money he was paid by Sam Bankman-Fried to pump FTX. Yes, he took the money that he was paid and used it to buy FTX tokens and to invest in FTX, the company. But he wasn't investing his own money. He was gambling with the house's money. Or more correctly, he was gambling with the money that Sam Bankman-Fried stole from his customers and gave to Kevin O'Leary to promote FTX. Now, according to Kevin O'Leary, he didn't even invest the entire $15 million that he got from Sam Bankman-Fried. He only invested about $10 million, so he was able to keep $5 million, but he ended up having to pay that in commissions and taxes on the $15 million of income that he earned to be a promoter of FTX. But for him to be going out there now and pretending that he actually lost money, he lost nothing other than his reputation. But other people did lose real money. They weren't paid by Sam Bankman-Fried, and these people are a lot less wealthy than Kevin O'Leary. They took their hard-earned money and put it on the FTX platform, and they lost it, in part because of Kevin O'Leary. It's possible that some of the people who lost actual money in FTX, the reason they chose to open up an account at FTX and deposit their money or their crypto there was because of Kevin O'Leary's endorsement. So rather than pretending to be one of the victims of the scam, he should acknowledge his own culpability in helping to perpetuate the scam. Whether he knew it was a scam or not, he was paid to promote a scam, and that was probably one of the reasons he didn't do all the due diligence that he should have. And I think he should have been more forthright when he was publicly talking about how great Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX were. He should have disclosed that he was paid $15 million to express that opinion. Also, despite the collapse going on in crypto and Coinbase hitting a new record low, hardcore Bitcoin fanatics remain as enthusiastic as ever.
Peter Schiff also has a word for the state of the U.S. economy. Stocks have struggled in recent days due to some better-than-expected economic data and more hawkish talk from Fed officials. This has revived fears that the Federal Reserve could make a mistake and raise rates too high and keep them there too long, sparking a recession. In another interview, Peter Schiff said the economy is headed to a financial crisis.
Well, the U.S. economy is an absolute disaster. I mean, thanks to Fed policy over the last decade or so, we have a gigantic bubble. We never had a real recovery. We just had a financial bubble, and we dug ourselves into a much deeper hole than the one the Fed put us in 2008, following the financial crisis that they also created with the same type of monetary policy that is creating the crisis that we're heading for, which is going to be far worse than what we experienced in 2008. I mean, not only is inflation going to get much worse than it already is, but we're going to have a worse financial crisis than the one we had in 2008. So this is going to be the worst recession that the U.S. has ever experienced. It may even be worse than the Great Depression. It will certainly feel worse for most people because in the Depression, at least people got the relief of falling prices. This time, consumers are going to feel the sting of dramatically higher prices.
You believe that the third quarter growth and the factors involved are temporary. Could you break that down for us?
Sure. The only reason we had positive GDP in Q3 was because of a big improvement in our trade deficit. Now, we still had a huge trade deficit. It just wasn't as big as it had been in the prior couple of quarters. That was thanks to two factors. One, the strong dollar, which is now reversing. The dollar just had its worst month in 12 years, and it's falling again sharply today. So that's going to push the trade deficit up. In fact, the trade deficit in November that was released yesterday swelled by 10%. It was a huge jump. But the other factor that helped bring down the trade deficit was all the oil that Biden released from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Oil companies were able to buy that oil and then export it. And so that artificially boosted our exports, which improved GDP. But pretty soon we're going to run out of the oil in the Strategic Reserve. There won't be a reserve left. And so we won't be able to rely on that crutch. So I think Q4, I mean, the economic news that came out yesterday and today was horrific. So I think we're going to have a big negative number for Q4 GDP. And so we're going to end the year on a low note. And I think we're going to have another negative quarter in Q1 of 2023.
What do you make of Peter Schiff interview on Kevin O'Leary? Also, we would like to hear from our audience on what they think of the U.S. government arresting Sam Bankman-Fried instead of first allowing him to testify. Do you concur to the belief that they arrested him to prevent him from implicating politicians he generously donated money to? We're waiting to hear you in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.